I'm Josh Pintelresco. I write stuff. Apparently, I illustrate and podcast too. And my guest is the great performer, poet extraordinaire, Miranda Krogstad. So, Miranda, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, buddy. I was saying before the show, it's been a while since we've chatted publicly, and this time we have video, which means they get our lovely facial expressions.
Yes, that's right. The podcast
additional layer of random.
The podcast has evolved since we last did this. Oh, big time. Because I ended up. So I know this time you've been freelancing like I've been freelancing, right? As well. So what really kicked me in the teeth and something I realized a little later than I probably should have is you gotta find. Well, I realized early that you have to find a niche in freelancing. Like you have to find like whatever that niche is.
Right. It
didn't occur to me until like about 6 months ago that I've niched out a long time ago. It didn't like register in my brain at all. It's like I need to find my niche. Like I do this in my podcast every week, and it's like this is my niche. What the hell am I doing? Right? And
yeah, this totally is, man. Yeah, you do a lot of little things, and I always think that like being a jack of all trades is not always equivalent to being a master of none. Like I think that a lot of what you do is cross training. A lot of performance stuff and artistic stuff and writing stuff helps what you do in your podcast and makes you more curious and more relatable to the people you interview. And I don't know, I think you found a really great niche here, so you don't have to worry about a thing, dude.
Yeah, but you gotta realize those. Like that's the, when I do my freelance, I'm doing a freelance talk and laugh bridge. Like that's going to literally be the things. Like realize what you do different than anyone else, and try to figure this out as soon as you can, like how you stand out. Because once you do that, then it's about marketing yourself, and that's why I've done Twitch. This is why I'm on Twitch now. I'm on YouTube. I'm experimenting with YouTube titles right now. Like I just I interviewed somebody that did adult comics. So there was this point where we were talking about like sexy clowns and tiger stripe ice cream. So I put that up yesterday. It was like you just gotta listen, right? That's just it. So I've been experimenting with that. So now it's just about, now for me it's about scale, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that so I can take over the world. So that's been kind of my thing. And that's kind of like that's been my whole deal.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And you, I mean, again, great performer. You're a naturally good teacher. Right? No, it's true. It's true. The only thing I was going to be curious with you in this time was, were you going to release something in this time? Like, because I mean, that's right. Because the only thing I've said to you, you need something people can take. Like you're an experience to behold, literally when you perform. But you, like all performers, need something. Even if it's like the lousy band T-shirt, you need something that people
love the merch, man. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You need some merch. I am releasing something, but you're not going to be happy because it's a show. It's not merchandise.
No. I'm not unhappy that you do shows. That's what
I'm with you. It'd be lovely to have a book and to have T-shirts and to have mugs and all that. I love puns so much that I could make all the pun merchandise in the world.
Mark Leslie would buy it all of it. I call him Darth Vader.
The people who buy puns are my people, so it's kind of self-serving that, like, if I make this merchandise, I want to know who buys it and then make them my community. So.
But that's again, you guys all have your community already. It's like a little cult, and every once in a while, I actually laugh at your jokes now, which means I'm worried. I'm worried.
You're one of us. You love puns. Let's just accept.
Yeah. Some of them legitimately still hurt. I watch them and I go, why did you do that? I can't unsee that.
Right? That is equally rewarding. That is equally rewarding to us. If you groan or roll your eyes, it's
a little tear. It's like literally a little tear. It's like, that actually hurt. I'm not sure why they did this to me. Like, why did you do this to me? Right? And that was the whole, like, so it's like, but every once in a while, I have to say, okay, like every once in a while, I will look at one. It's like, okay, it's good. I can't deny it. It's good. It made me groan. Like at least it was well thought of. Some of them are just like I think there's a thing. I think there's a quality of dad joke or a quality of fun that I can appreciate. Like some of them are just lame. They just are. I just re-listen to them. I watch them and they're like lame as hell. And every once in a while, I can actually tell that they put some thought into it, right? Math jokes, for example, they're usually the math ones. There is some thought into it, and it's not.
Are you saying that like regular puns, there's no thought into it?
No. Some of them are lazy. You have to admit this. Some of them are lazy.
This is true. I think that like the more you get into puns, the more you realize that different people have different tastes too. Yeah. Some people are pun purists and like the words to be the exact same. And some people like it to be stretchy. Like my pasta poem, I say like you spaghetti me better than anyone else and things like that.
That's clever, right? That's clever because again, you're performing and you're doing a play on words, and that's not very. That's not very different than what some rap stars do with their word.
Oh, 100%. There's some amazing wordplay in raps.
Oh, absolutely no. I love Eminem's lyrics because they're very multifaceted. I think like he goes to some of his message. I think needs to evolve a little bit. This is just me being just like I think he's got more to say than what he talks about. And that's that is my criticism because when he goes into deep subjects, he's really amazing.
Have you listened to his newer stuff?
Yeah.
He does hit on political and personal stuff. I find more in his later work than in his early work. His early work is mostly just kind of like creating his style, I think, more than anything.
The stuff I find he makes the most impact is stuff like The Darkness. Like that was because the whole thing was a double entendre all the way until you got to the main point. And when you got there, it's like, holy shit. And he put himself in the guy like that was genius. Like the way he did that, like there was so many levels right up until this gun started firing in there. It was like there were levels to that I don't think a lot of musicians dare try to do, and yet he did it, and that's why he's a genius, and that's why he's amazing.
Yeah,
right.
He's pretty darn awesome. He is one of the rappers that I teach in my workshops because, he has technique for days. That dude, technique for days.
Yeah, you can tell he really gets into like the rhythm of what and what you did again, and what you're doing when you do your poetry and you're performing. It's not that different.
That's a huge compliment.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah.
No, it's not. You're saying different things, and you're not. Although now that I see that, I want to see her in like shades of her head. Like let's go completely like lane house, right? Or go up there.
I feel like do I have sunglasses right here? Here's the look, right?
Yeah. You go like that.
I swear we didn't plan this. I just had them in my drawer. But I'm ready for my rap cover now. So
yeah. So but I think you're very I think in one I would be very curious like with some of the stuff you write about. Like I would be very curious. Like you talk about a lot of positive messages. I'd be very curious about you writing about the things that you care about that bother you. And what you would like what you would show, like what lenses you would show, because again, you are very technical in your performances. I've seen them, right, a few times, and I can actually say that you put a lot of thought into your craft.
Thank you. Yeah. In terms of like positive versus like I guess negative poetry, it's funny because lots of people kind of like I think mistake me for only a positive poet, which is it's true that every one of my poems I try to end on a positive note. But most of my poems start with problems that I'm having or struggles that I'm having. Like If You Got a Sound, which is maybe my most empowering poem, which is about kind of sharing your voice and all that, started because somebody said that, I shouldn't be doing spoken word poetry, and who was I to, carry on this tradition. And my response was just like, anybody should be able to share their voice, and I was really struggling with this and figuring out like how to express that. And that ended up being the response. It was super positive. Crazy started, because I think that, crazy has gotten such a negative reputation over the year. That word has kind of developed into something negative. And I was going, I think people could have a more positive perspective about this. We could reclaim that word, and because we're all like our own brand of crazy, who cares,
Oh yeah, especially this last year is pretty much exposed that everybody's gone a little nuts. I think it's one of those things where I just look at so like for me, I'm a big Dr. Seuss fan, and the reason why I like Dr. Seuss is because one, okay, from a rhythm standpoint, A B A B or A A B B. I actually did a comic script to Dr. Seuss, like to the Dr. Seuss style. It hurt my brain.
Did you invent your own words?
Oh my! No, I did not invent my own words.
Okay.
I'm not. It was my first time. I'm not that good. Yeah, I'm not that good.
Into it. I understand.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I recognize like the techniques are interesting because they force you to be creative in interesting ways, and I find that it actually enhances your creativity, not stifles it, right? But the thing about that is, right? I think the challenge is not every technique fits every story you're trying to tell, and once I realized that, I understood something about you. Because again, your stuff seems simple, right?
Yeah, sure.
Right? Seem. Again, there's the key word in there is seem. Yeah, right. There's a lot of thought, and again, a lot of technique. I guess what I'm asking with you is, do you overthink too much?
I could probably be accused of that. Sure.
Yeah.
I definitely understand what you're saying, like about my work appearing simple. I definitely try to keep it accessible. Like I purposely don't use big words unless the big word is the best word to use there. And sometimes with alliteration and rhyme and stuff, you do use a bigger word just to fit the sound of it or whatever. I don't try to be over the top in any way, too pretentious if I don't need to be. So I can understand the kind of simple vibe. I definitely put a lot of technique into my work, and part of what I love about my craft is studying it. Writing is fun. Like I love writing, but that's also, I guess, what happens after all the research and all the technique and all that. Part of the reason that I love doing teachers conventions is because it's an opportunity for me to study techniques and figure out how to frame them to teachers and students. This year I'm doing one on comedy, and I'm doing one on music, and one on performance, and one on writing, right? So it's kind of this cross training for me of learning the technique. But you can certainly overthink. Once you have a couple dozen tools in your toolkit, you're like, oh, does this one fit better here? Or does this one fit better here? And am I going too comedic here? Or should I, be a little more serious for this poem? It's always interesting once you have that many tools. Like I said, you totally can overthink and be like, did I do the right thing here? Should I have done this different thing? But
so how do you say to your significant other down? It's like, listen, I need you to watch this. I need some feedback. Or do you have a group of people when you're actually performing something new? You go, okay, I don't know if this is good. Help me. And then you perform a piece the way you originally think it and go, what do you think? What did I do? And like me, are you like, please don't say it's nice. Just tell her.
Criticism is something that's been really interesting for me. And it's been a bit of a journey to seek feedback from people. I think most of the editing happens for me alone because, and this might surprise you because as a writer, you shouldn't have a thin skin, but I think I have a thinner skin than most. Having said that, there are a handful of editors in my life that I trust completely to edit my work the way I want it. So, my dad, Josh Forbes, the guy who edited Why We Tell Stories. And, there's a couple other people that I could send it to them, and I trust them to try to recognize what I'm doing and give me feedback that they would do for me not for them, which is really important when you're a performer, because somebody can give you the perfect, most outrageous joke, which, believe me, happened a few times in Why We Tell Stories with Dad and Josh. They are raunchy people.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that joke is perfect if you were the one performing it. I cannot pull that off, and we both have to recognize that. So I think finding editors that are good for you is really important. I'm not sure if we've talked about this before, about kind of creative writing classes in university, because I minored, I guess I specialized in creative writing within my English honors degree. So I took a few creative writing classes, and there would be 16 people who would all give you feedback. All of the other students would give you feedback. And there would always be one person who loved it and one person who hated it for the exact same reasons, right? Like, and I think that was a really great lesson on, like, you know, people give you feedback based on sometimes what they would do if it was them, you know? And so some people would be like, Miranda, you know, your style's too, you know, you could get more elevated with your language, or, you know, whatever. And they would basically critique the stuff that I was trying to accomplish with my work, you know? And I mean, and also some people give you advice like, hey, we should throw a zombie in there. And I'm like, this is a nonfiction about my family, so maybe not zombies, you know? But like, I think
that sounds hilarious.
Yeah. That'd be a wonderful story. It's just not my story, right? So I think it's interesting, the balance between like trying new tools. I certainly like to like try different things and like put on different hats and see how, you know, different styles fit my work. But ultimately it's your writing and it's your name at the top of the page. And so, you know, finding people who are able to look at your style and what you're trying to accomplish and give feedback based on that, I think is super important. And, you know, you said that you like taking advice based on like, you know, basically be mean, like, tell me what's bad about it. That is not me at all. I always say like sandwich technique, tell me what's good about it. Tell me what to keep doing. Like,
well, no. I think we should clarify that. I don't want to hear it's nice. Because it doesn't tell me anything.
That I entirely agree with.
Yeah. I don't want to hear like that. Like my biggest struggle for like my formative years writing was finding people that could give me actually legitimate feedback that would make my techniques better. I want to get better. I don't mind being complimented on something I did, especially here's me, and this is my little like enjoy. If what I intended to do actually plays out exactly the way I hope it does,
feeling,
that's
right?
amazing, right? But that doesn't like. But I've learned this too. My shit does stink, and you have to be like, and you have to be really realistic about that. Like I don't do like I'm not. Every time I write, I'd be almost tempted to do this with you. I show you the big difference. My first novel I came out last year. I got my second novel just about done.
Congratulations!
Yeah. I did 2 books last year, so I mean, I got 2 books, and so one was a poetry thing, one was a novel, and I got my next book, which I'm actually illustrating pieces of it for the first time ever, which is kind of scary.
Wow.
Yeah. I grew as an artist quite a bit in this last year.
Absolutely.
The feedback I was looking for were ways to make it better and things I understood to make things better. For example, like the second novel, there's no seds, ask, question. There's none of those there's no verb play in there at all. It was a deliberate choice. It changed the whole thing. And the other thing I recognized too is I learned this ironically enough with doing like pictures and stuff like that. It made me realize something. What matters in the story? What's the expression you're going for? Now, even though I'm having silly little fun, I'm trying to learn as much as I can about expression in drawing, because it's not about how, here, I'll show you. I got to send this out and today, like this, I actually sold this, believe it or not. My Lego.
That's so cool. Look at that. You're doing illustrations, man.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Well, I sold that piece. I got to actually mail it later today. But the thing about that is every time I play with a different thing, I come back with a toolbox when I'm doing writing or anything like that.
Absolutely.
And how I play with the tools is I ask myself this question, and I find this makes it a lot easier, is what's the story I'm trying to tell? It seems like a really simple point of view, but I mean, like, for example, we can talk about a concept like crazy, okay? Maybe like you're trying to look at crazy from like, what is the actual happy perspective of crazy? And that was the story you wanted to tell with that word. But what if the story I wanted to tell with that word is that maybe there's the one normal person is judging everybody else as crazy? That's a very different story than the one you told. That's a very different story. So the techniques, right? So maybe
God, where are you gonna find that normal person though? But yes, I get the point of like,
yeah, exactly, right. I mean but the thing about that, right, is again, maybe my wordplay, maybe I'm a little bit more manic than you were, right? Maybe I'm a little bit more like almost like a mad glee because I'm talking about madness, and I want that in the wordplay so it comes out in a very, very different. But that's a different story. Yep. It's a totally different story than the one you chose to tell. So I think, with technique, I think one of the things I want to throw out here, before you choose whatever technique you choose, the first important question you may want to ask yourself is, if I'm telling a story, what's the story I'm really telling here? What am I actually trying to say?
Yep. I think laying out an outline and a plot is integral to what I do. I usually do kind of a bullet point outline of like, okay, I'm going to talk about, all the good uses of crazy, and then I'm going to talk about how it's been used negatively, and then I'm going to talk about redefining it, and then I'm going to end on empowerment. I'll do kind of like an outline these days of how I kind of want it to look and what story I'm telling. I was really curious, though. I want to circle back to something you were saying about technique. Just as a creative writer, you were talking about not using words like said, asked, questioned. Now, do you replace these with like more interesting speaking words, or you just do descriptions, or you just leave plain dialogue? I'm just so interested in this technique.
So this is what I do. I realized something too, like everything you do in a novel is a story. So how are they moving? What's their body language?
Okay, good. Yep.
What's their body language? The first novel was great. It taught me I did it. The first novel, it was very close to what I wanted to set across. But the next time I do a novel, the next time I looked at it, it's like I confused some people when they read the book. And when I was getting my reviews back, I listened. And then I just like look around. So what could I do to make either the characters more relatable, or what could I do to, again, because it's they were very specific things. Right, there were very specific things, and some of my friends who are writers actually pointed some of these things out to me. It's like, this is a good story, but this could have been great. And I'm so proud of that first novel. I really am.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed it.
You learn something from each story.
Yeah. So but I realized so the leap, so what I decided is like, okay, what if I treated now. That doesn't mean I plot everything. I call myself a planter. I know where I'm going, but I don't always have the map I don't always have the map to how I get there. I understand the space, like I would say I have the skeletal structure of the story I want to tell. Yeah. And I let myself be surprised by the twists and turns I get along the way, because it's much more interesting. Expectations can be very predictable. In fact, honestly, they probably should be. I think in most stories you tell. What's actually interesting when you tell a story is the twists and turns in the journey to get there, because those are the spots where you can plant the real surprises in there. Yeah. My favorite examples, I look at a couple movies, and say what you will about The Last Jedi, I think my favorite thing was they told you the ending, like literally at the beginning of the movie. When she meets Luke for the first time, I was like, what do you expect me to do? Show up at the end with my lightsaber and save the day? That's exactly what he did.
Right.
Exactly what he did. It was exactly what you expected. And they told you very early. Or the other one I really like is The Matrix. The Oracle looks at Neo and seems he's the one. It's like, I'm going to say, you know what? But you know what I'm going to say. I'm not the one. That's right, kid. I'm sorry. You have the gift, but it looks like you're waiting for something. What? The next life, maybe. Who knows? Like, they gave it to you.
Yeah.
They threw it away in a wonderful spot. But the fact that they said that prepped you for what was actually going to happen later. Also,
it's really interesting when people give you the ending, because then it becomes less of a question of what's going to happen, and then it becomes a question of how's it going to happen and why, right?
But but Matrix in particular was great about how they did it, because they did it in a way that seemed out there to begin. Like, really, the next life, there's no reincarnation. Like, when he dies, he dies. Well, no, actually, he doesn't. But it makes sense in the story they told. It made total sense what happened.
Right.
Where it doesn't where it didn't do well, like something like that, where that technique can fall on your face. Dark Knight Rises. When Alfred talks about where he envisioned seeing Bruce in Paris, I realized at that moment in time that the only question I had in that story, it was too much information. The only question I had when I got that thing told to me is which woman he was going to end up with. I wasn't sure if it was going to be Talia or Catwoman at that moment in time. Turned out it was Catwoman, but either, like, that was too much given away in a way that wasn't clever. Whereas the other two, Luke was very despondent, despairing, afraid, and the Oracle almost was just fooling with the audience a little bit. Like, you played with the audience's expectations in a really fun way with that. And that's a very, like I said, that's what we do. Like, we play with expectations all the time. That's what good stories actually do. So the real challenge then at that point is, whenever you're telling a story, right, is to lay on those expectations in a way that people realize this, right, but are like, okay, I'm going to go with you for the ride. And that's your job. Like, when you're telling a story, it's not coming up with these wonderful new expectations, because honestly, it's been done by everybody. Everybody's done it, right? What you're doing is you're trying to take people on a wonderful journey in those expectations. And once you have them in that, and once you have them blocked in, they're going to want to turn the page. And hopefully, if you're very, very smart, you've made them feel something along the way, because that's what people remember. Not that it's even the story you're told, but the experience you left them in telling it.
Right. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that, like, expectations are interesting in the way that you can either completely change somebody's expectations, or you can go along with exactly the expectation you set. And either can be an interesting storyline. You know, like, I've been watching a lot of comedy lately, and, you know, often some of the best jokes will be a setup where people are expecting one outcome, and then they'll do a twist right at the end that makes you laugh even harder. But also, I mean, there are some really predictable storylines and expectations that are set that people follow, and you laugh at that too, right? Like, it's, I think that in plots you can do either, and it can be a really powerful thing to, as you said, like, give it away all up front, or, you know, slowly unveil things, and it just ends up, you know, as you said, every combination has been done before. So whether you set it up and people follow it, or whether you set it up and deviate from that, you know, as long as you do it in a compelling way, I think it can be really interesting for the audience.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing, right? You're trying to make people think, like, when you go to a Miranda Krogstad performance, you're going to feel inspired, enlightened, uplifted. Like, that's the goal, right? That's the goal you're trying to do. Yeah. You're trying to say something profound, but you're also trying to make people feel good about life and living and moving on. And that's who you
just take that quote and put it for my show.
Go ahead. I mean, it's here. I mean, this is going to be on YouTube eventually, so you can steal this all day long.
I will replay it, type it out. Yeah.
But that's again, that's the thing. For me, I want to make you laugh. I want to make you think, because I like comedy, because comedy is the one area where you can be as outlandish as possible, right? You can go anywhere you want in comedy. Right. The thing about that is, the thing about comedy is, it has to be, I think of this, okay, so the television show I think of is The Simpsons, right? Because the first 7 seasons, the jokes are so sophisticated. Like, they're so well thought out, layered. They emphasize a point. There's a story within all these jokes they tell. Then you get to, like, Zombie Simpsons, and nothing's really that funny anymore. Right. And for anyone listening, Zombie Simpsons is basically The Simpsons without its soul. They kind of lost its soul somewhere a long time ago, but the corpse is still piling on, and we can still watch it. South Park, consequently, is the opposite. It actually, I think, as it progressed, it got more nuanced and better, because they told their stories better as time went on. Because I think early South Park is terrible, but I think later South Park is actually smarter, because the jokes are more sophisticated, but the jokes are more well thought out. Right. And
what can happen, hey, how it shows progression, like, I think so many shows evolve over time, and they're going to become more appealing to some audience members and less appealing to others. And they have to realize that as they shift, the audience is going to change.
Yeah, no, and that's, you make that decision. It's the only way you have longevity. You look at The Simpsons, 30 years, no matter what I may think of the show, that's a feat. Every artist dreams of having a show that goes that long and provides that much. But you're going to recognize when you do something like that. And I've talked about this even with book series. Your characters, your premise of your show, your concept is going to have to evolve at some point for two reasons. One, you will go insane if you don't, because being locked in the same position for forever. You don't want to be Sir Arthur Conan Doyle with Sherlock Holmes. Right. You don't want that. On the flips, you don't. You want the money, but not you don't want to hate.
As a counterpoint, if I think either path will lead to happiness, as long as you're genuinely happy creating the work that you're creating. If you want to create the same work for 50 years, be my guest.
Oh no, okay, yeah. But here's what happens. Strictly on I think this is just the natural thing of the world. Sure. You have to change, even in small increments over time, because if you don't, what tends to happen is you hit a ceiling of how far you can go, and then what eventually happens is slowly but surely you plateau, and you have to evolve, and that's changes life like that. I've learned this. The one true constant in life is change. Right. Next time I talk to you, maybe my hair will be back to short and bald. Maybe you'll have even longer hair. Maybe you'll be like me. You'll be like who knows, right? You may decide that but that's a cosmetic change. But the stories you tell, what you care about, also evolves because you get older and you get more experience in the world. Right. And as a result, you getting more experience in the world, how you see things changes and evolves. And so when you look at a show like The Simpsons or even South Park, I feel South Park's gotten more sophisticated. Now that's because because I really despise the early stuff. I thought was terrible to me. But I'm sorry, guys. Other than Kenny dying all the time, it wasn't really the joke wasn't really that. And I'm a terrible human being, I know, but it's just the way it is. But again, they made a conscious choice to change and evolve their show, and it chose a direction. The Simpsons also chose a direction, and there comes a point. I think I think South Park could go another 5 years. I think The Simpsons should be done, but I also understand it too because I think The Simpsons has run out of things new to say. That's what I think, and when you hit that point. The property, you're basically and I get it, you don't want to walk away from that money. You just don't, because it's there, and now it's also ingrained in culture. But at the same time, you're in terms of what I feel like telling a story, I don't know if The Simpsons can actually truly do anything new. They'd have to evolve their style into something completely different again, to try something different, and I'm not sure they want to do that. And I think that comes to a point too, is they've hit their plateau, and you can see it with their numbers are slowly dwindling because there's only so many people that are going to watch the same thing. Everybody changes, everybody evolves, and you must too.
That's an interesting thought. I'm gonna posit a few ideas here because I think you're onto something that evolution. I think is wonderful as an artist. Having that exploration to discover something new and apply new styles. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Having said that, I think there's been a lot of artists who have been successful doing the same thing for a really long time, and that consistency has appealed to their fans. For example, I love Jack Johnson as a musician, and he makes the same style of music, and actually when he changes it, it annoys me because I'm like, why is there an electric guitar in this track? You're an acoustic folk singer. What are you doing? And of course, that's going to appeal to somebody else, and that's totally fine. And go for your evolution, Jack. No, not holding you back. But for example, Shakespeare plays have been remade and remade and remade. You look at right till the present day when they're making things like She's the Man and 10 Things I Hate About You, these movies that are remakes of Twelfth Night and what was the other one?
I don't know. I didn't see.
I hated what you was Taming of the Shrew. Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, like basically, it's the same plot over and over and over again. And if you look at a lot of chick flicks today, it's a lot of the same plots as Shakespeare. And so, I mean, sure, there's something to be said for the remakes, but I'd even say that like doing the same thing for years and years and years, you're going to lose some audience because your audience is going to evolve in ways that you won't. But you're going to gain some audience and you're going to keep some audience that expects that consistency. And so, you know, something that kind of sticks in my mind is Sarah Kay said that, you know, she often writes the same poem over and over again, but like in different ways, sort of thing. Like, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's the kind of thing that I feel about my work too, is that like, I always write the poem that is just be yourself, be kind to others. You know, it's like all this empowerment stuff. And then I'll write it on a bunch of different topics. So I think that as long as you feel you're getting enough newness out of your craft, you can do the same thing for 75 years or 500 years or 1,000 years, like in, you know, like the case of some plays and stories, right?
Can I offer an interesting counterpoint to you?
Please do. Please do.
An interesting counterpoint to you. What you're talking about is establishing a formula for your work. There's a formula to it.
Yeah.
And going back to something I said earlier, techniques, formulas, and stuff like that can actually enhance creativity and not actually take away from creativity. Right, and something I said earlier. So the fact that, for example, like Shakespeare's story, like plots have been retold not just there, but in science fiction. Paul Anderson made a career doing Shakespeare plays in outer space. I mean that, and there's nothing wrong with like taking an old story and retell. In fact, one of my favorite comics, Saga, is another old story being retold on screen and on the air, and it's a brilliant little comic. But here's where I think the difference is. You're still exploring that space that you're in right now, and you're discovering new things about that, and more importantly, you. And because you're an artist, you're exploring that. That's the surprise. That's your journey. You're still growing in those spaces, and because you're growing in those spaces, there's a formula, yes, but it's still new because those voices matter. The things you're saying, they're almost like, and I'm not saying necessarily your first time, but you're still very impassioned about what you're saying when you go up on the stage, and you can tell that when people watch what you do. Where as
long as you still have the passion for your craft, right? Like if you can keep it new somehow for yourself.
Yeah, there's that. So that's point one. Here's the second point. So Jack Johnson changing into going to that electric guitar for that one or two songs. I'm a big, like, you talk about another formula. Like, I love Linkin Park. I love Linkin Park.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. They did 1,000 Suns.
Yeah.
Okay. It's literally a concept album about nuclear fallout. And individually speaking, those songs do not stand up to test of time like a lot of their other songs did. But the fact that they went and took that chance, and same with Jack Johnson taking some chances every now and then, when they go back to the formula, it's almost like they've learned new words for their language, and now they can do something different. Like Castle Glass is an amazing song from Linkin Park. I don't know if they'd done it if they hadn't done 1,000 Suns. And I think that, right? I think the ability to go into new spaces. I think every artist has to take leaps every now and then. That doesn't mean you stay there, but what it does is it's almost like it's taking you out of your comfort zone.
Right.
And when you get out of it, you learn new things about yourself. And when you come back, it's like, okay, I'm now a better person, or I'm a little bit more fleshed out. Like I'm a more finished piece. So when I go out now my pieces when I go out and perform are more finished. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that like keeping a newness to your craft definitely makes sense, and certainly like cross training and trying different arts that are related to your art has certainly been something that I've put into practice as well. It has been really beneficial to me. I think that I think we're agreeing on most of the points, that it's like, that artists should have a passion for their work. If that's the same thing for 50 years, that's fine.
Yeah.
If it, always trying something different, that's fine. It's just about like keeping that newness and that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
If for you, playing the same songs and, or doing the same plays or following the same formula is, satisfying to you. Cause I never think I think you could do the exact same play or the exact same poem or the exact same song hundreds of times and still learn something,
Absolutely.
You subconsciously realize, oh, I'll tweak that part about my performance, or, oh, that word, maybe I could do a little bit differently, or, you'll find little ways to improve it. So I think whether you're somebody who likes jumping off cliffs creatively and is like, okay, I am a spoken word poet, so next thing I'm going to do is, balloon painting. It's like, if you're that kind of creative person,
I totally do that with you. I totally do that with you.
Actually, my brother Aiden was a balloon artist back in his day. Like when he was in high school, he would like make balloon animals for parties. So, little side fact for you. But if you're somebody creatively who likes that kind of variety, go for it. If you're somebody who's very specific in what they know they like and they want to continue doing that, do that. Like, I think it's just like about, like you said, keeping passion and newness in your craft, whatever that means to you.
Yeah. We all have, like you said, we all have to experiment a little bit, but again, like you just said, we don't have to jump off the cliff every time, right?
Yeah,
we don't have to. We can get like one of those we can take a rope and we can just take a little swing here, a little swing there, right? And not go all the way to the bottom.
That would be me probably. I don't know. Like I love trying new things, but I usually try them behind the scenes. Like you are somebody who very publicly, I think, tries new endeavors. Like you will publish those books and do those, comics and poems and, shows that are like totally new for you. You'll do them publicly and release them as shows. Whereas I will like study things behind the scenes and like get to know them. But I'm very cautious about what I release to the public. Even a lot of my poems are not released.
Even I am, believe it or not. There
you go. See, the fact that you get even crazier behind the scenes blows my mind because you have such a variety that you have.
It's for me it's more like, I think of it like this, right? Like one of my favorite musics, and just from a technical level, is jazz. And jazz is amazing, right? Because you literally see musicians are playing, like they take the structure of a song and they play with it in ways you never would imagine. And what I always remember when I do stuff like that is the fact that there's always so many different fun and wonderful ways to stand out with your stuff. And so a little insight into me, I recognize like the kind of artist I am is that everything I do is stands alone almost, because I'm trying, as you say, I don't play by the rules.
Right.
So here's the risk I'm taking is this is the risk I take, is no one's going to, because it's so different, that people are going to be like, oh, I don't know, this might be like, this is kind of crazy. Right.
You might lose some of your audience in each shift.
Well, actually, yes and no. Initially, so like for example, I'm still doing an audio recording of this podcast. This is actually still airing on the air. My audio numbers have dropped, but I got more followers on YouTube. I got more followers on Twitch. So I actually increased my following just taking this chance.
Well, you're going to appeal to a different audience now.
Yeah, exactly. And
the same audience is just going to tune in on different platforms as well.
Well, what I did was I altered my scale, right? Is what I did, right? I altered the scale. Like the formula for the show, by and large, it's the same. It's that there are some differences, but they're not
significant. Yep. It's mostly the same formula of, people expect just Joshin to be this.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, right, I knew going in that again, and I knew this too, my audio numbers would go down a little bit. But what I was hoping is that, I would see a much more variety in terms of like different scale, like different people. Here's like something that has happened over time too. My podcast audience is now primarily American. It's not Canadian anymore, which I thought is really, really, it's really interesting to me that like that's been an interesting evolution. My Canadian presence has dropped significantly, but my American audience has bolstered it significantly as well.
No way. Yeah, this is the thing is whenever you make a shift, like we were talking about, artists making different choices and shifting into different realms, you're going to gain some audience and you're going to lose some audience.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. I think, but going like for me, like I recognize this too, because I'm I'm kind of like the outlier experimenter. So this is what's going to happen. Either I'm either never going to quite make where I set my goals at, or I'm really going to hit a home run. I basically like that, right? It's going to be one or the other, and and I've accepted that seems extreme both ways. But the truth is, I stand out, and I think once that's my big advantage is I stand out. I don't have to worry about that first ladder rung is always such a hard thing because everybody's got in this space doing the same thing. And a lot of times people mistake that you're actually competing against each other. It's not really the case. You like I can't do what you do. There is only one Miranda Krogstad. Yeah. There's only one Miranda Krogstad, and that's the way. Like your voice is truly unique, and that's what you truly bring to the table.
Well, right back at you, buddy. Yep.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't necessarily see that. Some of them from a distance. From a distance, it doesn't matter. Like people will see me a mile away. It's like, what the heck is this guy doing? And sometimes that's a good thing, but sometimes that curiosity will either draw people to me or repel people from me. I accept that because that's who I am. I'm the guy that likes doing different things in his sandbox, and that's who I am. I can't not be that guy. Right.
That's amazing, dude. Like, honestly, I always tell people, do what you love and the audience will find you. Whether you do what you love or you do what you hate, there's going to be an audience for it. So like, you might as well do what you love. And then whether that's 5 people or 5 million people, like all the power to you. Just like make the thing that makes you happy, because then you can keep making it and you can find the people who love that. So. Yeah.
No, and that's it. Like, so, okay, now I'm going to get on you. You still got to do something physical that people can actually see your work, even if it's just a recording of your stuff somehow, some way. I'm just saying, you got to do it.
I know, dude. I get it. And I totally agree that at some point having a CD or a book or whatever is important. It's just because it is, and I'm sure you can sympathize with this as an entrepreneur and, a freelancer, financial stability is based on, I think, doing the things that allow you to eat. And so for me, that's performing. And one day, maybe it can be books and CDs and stuff, but that's a lot of work and time for something that will be residual income. And that's amazing to have. It's all just part of the building blocks of creating what you want.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like making this online show for, the Adelaide Fringe Festival that's coming up in March has been a really great experience. Thank you. Yeah. So that's what I've been working on lately. But that's going to be a totally different experience that will develop me in a different way. I guess, I think what we've been talking about a lot here today is there's no wrong path to take. That all of these things that you're suggesting, 100% wonderful. And I think I will get there one day. I really do think that that's something that I'm interested in, something that will develop me as an artist. And I would love making books and CDs and merch. I think that'd be a totally fun and different journey from what I've been doing so far, and would expand me as an artist. That'd be really cool. But yeah, I do think that there's no wrong way, and that taking this route for now. I've been doing a lot of, February is going to have a lot of online teachers conventions also, doing poetry workshops with them. This is my busiest season yet because things are online. And then basically I think right now adapting to the online world has been my main focus because of the pandemic, obviously. And I think it's opened up some awesome opportunities. As I said, I wouldn't be performing at the Adelaide Fringe if things were normal and I'd have to fly out there and everything. So it's just a really interesting opportunity to shift in a different way. But don't worry, bud. It is at the back of my mind to eventually, I think, have some merch, have some physical product.
You miss crowds?
Yes and no. When I'm performing in a space, I will often look at the back wall or look between people. I don't love making eye contact with audiences.
Really?
I know, isn't that strange? I think I just get too much in my head. So if I see somebody's reaction and it's positive, I get distracted by it. If I see somebody's reaction and it's negative, I get distracted by it. So it's like I will pick the dark points where like no one is sitting, or like, you know, I'll kind of like look out into the blurred abyss of an audience. My favorite is performing in auditoriums where there's like a spotlight and then blackness. I'm just like, oh, perfect, the abyss. So I find that's kind of been nice for online performances, is you don't see the audience, you don't have that level of distraction, so you can really focus on what you're doing. So like I have my slides right in front of me. It always looks like I'm looking at the audience because I'm like staring straight at my computer, but like I think I can have a better flow of work that way for performances, because I can kind of have like my notes up and, you know, like my slides and everything, and I can transition really seamlessly in a way that I wouldn't be able to on stage when I'm trying to engage all of those people. It's different. You know what I miss though? I don't miss crowds, but I miss talking to crowds after the performance. That's what I miss, is like connecting with real human beings who want to like talk to you about your work and like throw ideas around of like what connected with them and, you know, what story that made them think of and whatever.
So you think it's going to happen this year? You think you're going to be able to get back on stage by the end of the year? Because I think my gut says yes, even though it might be small.
That'd be cool. I don't think I'm in a rush. Like I think that there's lots of things I miss. My family I'm really close with, and they've been really supportive of my career. But they're just a great part of my life. So I miss like those hugs and that contact and all that. But I've really been enjoying professionally, like adapting my career to this online world. And I hope that some of the things actually stay. Like I hope for next year.
No, I think here's the thing. This is how I kind of see it. I'm sick to death of looking at my computer screen every day. Like I think all of us have gotten to that point where it's just like, fuck this, right? I mean, very quietly, just like, fuck this. Like this sucks. Yeah. And I think regardless, that's why I think on some levels I think it's going to break by the time we get to the summer, at least a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be like fully back, but it's going to be at least somewhat back, because I don't think we got another year of this in us I don't think so.
Your guess is as good as mine. Yeah, but when you listen to different scientists and stuff, there are conflicting opinions for sure. I try to prepare for the worst, and then
I get that. I just think from a mental health standpoint, I'm not sure. Like I think we're coming to. I was out there as a quote unquote essential worker for a little bit. I don't think this is going to be health. I think we've come to the point where this isn't healthy exactly anymore. But I do think this. This is the virtual thing. Okay, for me was I got to meet so many cool people I would not have normally met in any other environment, right? Because in one very real sense, everybody was on the same level, which I think was actually a really fascinating thing. And I got connected to some really amazing people doing it. Yeah. But I do think, like, for example, like from a convention standpoint, okay, you might want to go to San Diego someday. Now, I don't know if San Diego is the show you want a virtual environment in, but there's going to be like shows now where the virtual performances will be a part of the show. The virtual conference, there will be a virtual aspect to these conferences that will impact people going forward. I do think that's going to exist. I also think the fact that we recognize the fact that from a communication standpoint, I can talk to anyone in the world, and I think we took that for granted, right?
That's huge, right? Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head that, like, personally, it's challenging at this point in the pandemic. Personally, it's challenging to be isolated as a mental health issue. I think it's really challenging not to give hugs, not to have face-to-face, not to have in-person interactions. That is so tough. But professionally, it opens up a lot of doors. It does. Yeah. I think that at the beginning, people didn't know what to do with it. So there was a solid 6-month lag, I'd say, for me in my world, where there was just nothing coming in, and no events were on, like there were very few events online yet. The conventions hadn't quite switched over. Most of the ones in those 6 months just canceled because there wasn't enough time to shift to an online platform. But now I think people are settling in, and you're right, like you get online interviews and online conferences that you wouldn't otherwise have. So like, as much as personally it has been a huge challenge this past year, I think that professionally, it does certainly open up the realm of places that you can apply to. And I probably got into different conventions that I wouldn't usually get into because I'm just a little bit too far away to afford travel for them, right? So it's been really neat.
And like going forward, you'll have this opportunity now to hit different audiences you never would have. I think that's going to be a big part of the, like, again, from a professional standpoint, I think there's definitely, and even like a business standpoint, I don't see, like, I see like remote work has changed everything, and I'm not going to buy a house until all the office leases are completely renewed in 5 years, because I don't think buying a house is that safe investment for the next 5 years, because offices are realizing that they don't have to bring the workforce back. So now you're looking at the fact now, all these big giant skyscraper offices you saw downtown, they're not necessary anymore.
So now the proximity to downtown doesn't matter so much, right?
Well, there's that, but also the fact is, okay, from let's say you did work at an office, right? Universities are going to be interesting going forward. I hesitated to jump into a course because it's weird to pay full price for just a digital experience, because I'm not sure that's I think an interesting challenge for universities. But for offices, I think the thing about offices is, okay, if I can do all my work at home, and I maybe have to have people show up at the office once a week or once a month just to do updates, kind of just basically touching base here and there.
Right.
Why do I need a giant office space? I don't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So I look at, like, I can see another, like, Toronto and Calgary both right now have a huge rate of vacancy right now. And so that's going to increase. And when the offices go to renew their leases, they're going to be like, do we really want a building this big? My money is no, they won't. They're going to go smaller, something a little bit more like streamlined. Again, something that people can come to, but no one's going to be working in the office job as we know it is kind of, it's not completely finished. At the very least, it's not going to be the same thing. So I'm when these leases for all these buildings are up, I'm going to be very curious what that's going to do to the housing markets in every other city, because you can see that companies aren't going to want to foot that bill, and you're not going to blame them, because why would they? They don't need those. They don't need those spaces anymore. But if you have some money saved up, you might be able to get a house real cheap in 5 years.
Maybe,
just based on that, because I think what this is going to do to property value is going to be interesting. But the remote work has changed everything. So, I mean, in terms of even like employer-employee stuff, it's going to change how relationships work in the workplace. It's also going to change relationships on a professional space. Because, again, we're having a fun little intimate conversation right now, and you're right. Not quite the same as in person, but it's also how do I put this? But this also, from a professional standpoint, might be a big part of normal going forward, and I definitely see that.
This is a really cool way of doing it. Like, it would require so much more setup if you're doing it in person, to get the cameras and the lights and all that set up, in an external space where you guys meet, and also for us right now, like, where are you living right now again, Josh?
Windsor, Ontario.
There you go. And I'm in Calgary. So, like, this would not be a thing for the regular podcast, right? Like, I gotta tell you what my next plan is. Like, what the next thing I'm actually going to do. So what I'm going to do is, eventually I'm going to get myself a mystery machine, like kind of like the Scooby-Doo maybe not quite painted the same. And to show, that's such a cool idea.
Yeah, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be just traveling across Canada and the United States, and I'm just going to interview people, because I think I I actually miss these. Like, I loved meeting people in coffee shops and bars. I thought it added such a cool little atmosphere to the show.
I do love meeting with people. I love coffee shop meetings.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. So I want to take it to like one step further. Like I'm single. I kind of can do my own thing, right? So I don't, honestly, from just a strictly need point of view, not a comfort point of view, but strictly a need point of view. Why do I want a house? I don't have a family to support, right?
Yeah.
So I don't really need one.
No.
It doesn't serve me in any real way. Equity is nice, except for the fact that do I want to be tied down somewhere for the rest of my life? And if the answer is no, why would I get a house? It makes no sense. Right now. So what I want to do is eventually I'm going to basically, live on the road. I mean, all I really needed at that point to do this show is an internet connection. I can interview people like this as I'm going to cool places. And when I go somewhere I really want to be, meet fascinating people, get them to get a camera, and just even if something really, really simple, like in like the front seat of a car, it doesn't really matter. Like the idea, like a different locale, a different place, a different, you can do some really cool meets and conversations. And because honestly, again, talking about doing what you love at the very beginning here.
Yeah.
There's not really much else I really want to do. So why would I limit myself, really? Right.
Yeah. And like, I think you've hit on something there that like twinged my heartstrings a little bit. The fact that you like that image of loading up a van and traveling across the country, like that I miss, like the travel, right? Like hopping on a plane and going to a conference in a different city. And especially, this time of year usually is such an exciting time of year where I'm in, 2-3 cities in a week. And that I miss. Like I miss the new place, the new people, talking to them after the shows, going to a new coffee shop that you've never been before. Like I do miss the newness of experiencing different places. Yeah.
It's you didn't go to these conferences to just be a professional.
Right.
You went for the experiences.
Yeah.
That's what she did. I mean, everything we do is about experience. It's not about, whether as an artist we're telling a story, but we're sharing an experience or a thought or something profound, what we've been through and lived with. Right. That's what we do. On the flip side, people want. There's nothing else. Like seriously, if you look at if we sit there strictly from a North America especially can say this by and large. Most of our problems when you sit there in terms of wealth and food have been solved. Now, there's a lot of injustices in North that we can talk about another day, but the truth of the matter is, in terms of the ability to solve our problems, they've been solved for a very long time. The issue we have is, okay, when we take care of all your basic needs, you want more. It's a very human thing. You don't just want to sit at a computer desk and wonder what's out there. You want to go out there. You want to see and you want to experience, because that's how you grow as people.
That's interesting. Like creativity from a point of like privilege of like, once your basic needs are met, then you want to do more. Yeah. I think too, like when your needs aren't met, it makes you creative in a totally different way.
Oh no, it makes you bold.
Yeah.
I know this from experience. There's 2 points in life where you are completely free. When you have nothing left to lose, right? And when the complete opposite, what you do when you have absolutely everything you can possibly want.
Right.
There's both. Like at both places, there's the commonality of you can do anything you want.
Right.
Absolutely anything, and there's nothing anyone can say to you about it. It doesn't matter. Right, because you've come to that point. It's like, I must change. I have everything I need to find something more. I have nothing. There's nowhere else to go. I have to move forward. There's similar points of view ultimately. Everything in the middle, there's always that fear of loss of something. You have to lose something to gain something. It's almost like a trade-off.
Right.
But at the very bottom or at the very top,
what do I have to lose? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So So you have to be very cognizant of those of that. So it's like when we talk about getting out of our comfort zone, it's more frightening as you move up and then as you move up, because there's always that risk you're going to go back down, and you don't want to go back down. You've been there. It sucks, or it's great, or it's one like whatever your opinion. Like you don't want to be where you were.
Right.
You want to keep going forward because it's very much a growth mentality. So, so when you get to the bottom, and I've been there, you see things completely differently, and you stop caring. There's a lot you stop caring about, and going ever since I've been there, I've always kept a little part of me that's like, I don't care. I'm just going to move forward from what I learned from that, because it gives you a hunger. It gives you a purpose that propels you in ways that if you've never experienced that kind of adversity, you'll never fully understand. It's just because it's so powerful when you're there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Have you been there? I maybe a little bit of a personal question, but I'm curious because I know I know you've definitely faced adversity, but have you ever been to that I have nothing left to lose?
No, I don't think so. I think that for me, I'm a very risk adverse person, which sometimes surprises people because as an artist, people think that you have to, again, jump off cliffs to take risks and make a living for yourself. But one of my favorite books on creativity is by Elizabeth Gilbert, the same author who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. But I actually prefer her book, Big Magic. I mean, both of them are great, but Big Magic is all about creative living. And, she always said she would never ask her creativity to support her. And I thought that was really interesting. But, she bartended for many, many years. And then she was a journalist and could eventually kind of, make enough money to write novels on the side. And then she wrote exclusively novels, the thing that she most wanted to write. But I definitely feel that same way that, during COVID, when I had that 6-month period of no work, I did some English and French tutoring, and that fed my soul in a different way. And when I started out, certainly I was doing, I was working in day camps over the summer, and I was tutoring on the side, and I was even cleaning houses at the beginning. I always, did extra things so that I had money to invest in my career. And then, until my career took off to the point where I was able to do exclusively that. And I don't think there's any shame in kind of teetering back and forth if that's what people need. It depends on your comfort and what you want. I certainly respect people who, are able to take those big risks of I'm going to throw everything at this and I'm not going to have a penny left in the bank account. But that is certainly not my comfort level.
No.
So I definitely try to create cushions, where I'm not too proud, I think, to take a second or a third job on the side of my creativity to fuel it and to make it stable for myself if I need to. So
I do the same thing. Like in terms of I've done temp work throughout this time. I've made money as a freelancer, but I've done warehousing. I'm probably going to be doing some more warehousing next week. Right. It's not.
Feed your soul in a different way. You can kind of have that meditative aspect of work in that context, right? There's different benefits to it.
Well, that, and also, I mean, it's honestly, this is just my own personal opinion on this. There's no jobs you're too big for. I wouldn't.
100%.
I wouldn't want to do a fast food job anymore. I kind of feel like but I'm not above even doing that at this point in my life, because it's not
right.
It doesn't matter what my job's not necessarily my identity. It's about what purposes it's serving in this moment at this time. And for me, I made a conscious decision this year that I'm doing this until March 21st. I literally have a date in my head. I'm going to try. Well, you do this because you want. If you don't set a deadline for yourself, you have to make yourself uncomfortable enough that you're going to push forward. You don't necessarily have to go all in, but you have to be Okay.
You always have to be investing in your career in some form or other.
Yeah. And so, but you got to be really like blunt about it. It's like I'm trying all these things this year because this is also an opportune time to try. Like really, if it doesn't work out, whatever, right? It doesn't, right. I mean, this is one of those weird moments in time where it's like, if you always wanted to do something, now go nuts, because honestly, no one's going to care, because it's just like, right, they're going to do their thing. So I gave myself until the 21st, because after that I was like, okay, now it's time to, okay, if it doesn't work out the way I envisioned it, and right, if it doesn't work out the way I envisioned it, okay, now I have to. And it's funny too, because I literally right before we got this, I pitched something back in July last year. I finally heard back from them today. They're interested, but it was like one of those things, like, you keep throwing things out into the ether. Now, right now, I don't like I know this for me. I do not have it in me to work a full time, like what I'm doing for my side stuff. I don't have it in me to work full time doing it. I just don't. I just don't.
Flexible side hustle is so key for me, to be able to put my creativity first and then do whatever else on the side, right?
I can't do it. So I know this. So for me, it's been about figuring out who the business end, who I am as a performer, an artist, a marketer, a creative, marketing that, and then now, if it doesn't work out the way I imagine it will, March 21st, maybe I have to go back and maybe I do some other things. That's fine. What's gonna happen is I'm just gonna keep investing in what I'm doing.
Totally.
Ultimately, I'm going to get that mystery machine, van, car thing, whatever to do. Maybe I do it right. I do that. I go to where I'm supposed to be. Keep doing what I'm doing. And then in another year or so afterwards, I try again, because honestly, I at this point, it's like, take what I've learned, take how I've grown, and evolve. Like you don't, and learn what you. And honestly, I think probably the biggest lesson I learned in this time too, and something you touched on very, 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 very briefly, doing what you love.
Right. Absolutely.
I've grown I've personally grown quite a bit in terms of just the different things I do artistically.
Right.
But I also just realized, like, I was doing audio. I actually did my first audiobook. I realized that I personally don't mind them, and I still would narrate for people, but I'm not going to make them, because it just it doesn't give me a creative satisfaction to.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
Everybody has their own things that they like and they don't like, and if you don't like it, somebody else will do it for you. So
exactly. So
somebody else will do it, and that's fine too.
Right? Yeah, exactly. No, hey, there's the whole world is built on that. Somebody else will do it.
Yeah,
do this for me, because it's not my thing, and that's totally fine. So I mean, I've learned an awful lot. I think we've gone for quite a while, and I've enjoyed it.
We just get gabbing, hey bud.
Yeah, we do. So I'm gonna ask this. What is, personally, professionally, what were the biggest two things you learned about yourself in this time?
Oh my gosh. So there was a lot of change and challenge in my life this year. Personally, certainly, like, new house, new car, new roommate situation, new, like, everything. And I mean, there's been a lot of really beautiful changes. I think maybe then, like, one of the things that I've learned is, I'm trying to think of how to word this. Basically, that you remain you, no matter what situation you're dropped into. Mm-hmm. That, I definitely feel that my life is easier now that I've done the work. Like, I wouldn't recommend repeating 2020 to, like, anyone. That was not a fun time in life. But, like, I'm really glad that I made the progress I did. And I think that, like, you maintain the you-ness, no matter what challenges you're put through, and no matter what new situation you're put into, no matter if your clothes and your house and your life is different, you will always maintain a little bit of you, and you carry that with you everywhere. And like, that's always been true for my life since I moved around quite a bit growing up and stuff, you know, like I think I learned that pretty young, but I certainly think it's true during these times when people lose their job or, you know, like have to downsize in houses or have to give up, you know, a business they really cared about. There's a lot of sense of like, who am I without these things? And it's like, you're still you. You still have those skills that you developed, you know, before when everything was thriving. So I think that's lesson number one is like, you're still you, regardless of how this pandemic has changed your situation. And the second thing I think is adaptability. You know, I am so grateful for the way things have shifted online and the way that oh my gosh, I am the worst with technology. I always joke that I have this like 80-year-old alter ego that like her name's Edna and she just does not get technology. But like this time has been really great for Edna. You know, she's learned so much. You know, we've learned the whole like camera setups and online platforms and all this kind of thing.
I really think there's a story. You should tell a story about you and Edna sitting down and learning technology together. That would actually.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a great story there.
Post about this for sure. Edna and I are like we're like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Edna is. I mean, she's the one who like lifts her phone in the air higher to see if there's like a better connection, and like you know she just does all the she'll like not realize she's on mute when she's in a Zoom call. You know that girl. So I've definitely, my inner Edna has been coming out during these times for sure. But yeah, I really think that being able to like shift to an online platform, I've learned so much about technology, about how to, you know, use a video card with your camera, to use it as your webcam and like, you know, different like microphones and technology and things. I've really learned a lot, like from a strictly logistical standpoint. I've also learned a lot about, you know, how to shift your business to an online business. And so, you know, I'm really grateful for the growth. And I think that, as I said, I hope that some of these skills carry forward into, you know, post-COVID times. I think there will be the option for more online gigs and, you know, online conferences and whatever. And I'm really grateful that I've now kind of flexed those muscles and learned that skill set that I can now apply to other situations. So yeah, so I'd say like it's been a year's challenge, but I'm really grateful that I've learned a little more about me and a little more about business as a result.
And so it sounds like you do that. Oddly enough, I think you sound happier a little bit, all the way around. You sound a little happier.
Yeah, I'd say I'm getting there. I'd say that it has been a really challenging year. But you know, like it's always going to be a little bit of heavy lifting when you're making changes. And then once those changes are made, you're right, you get to kind of like enjoy the benefits. You know, I get to enjoy my lovely roommate and her dog and a space where I can keep my studio set up and I don't have to take it down and set it up every time I record something. And, you know, like there's just been lots of beautiful moments for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. I think there's one more thing to talk about, and then we can wrap this bad boy up. Because I've enjoyed this chat, and
I love talking with you, dude. Yeah. It's great to see your face.
Let's see here. You got a show you've been working on, so let's talk about that show and where people can find it and all that other fun stuff.
You bet. So the show is going to be an online version of Why We Tell Stories, which you came and saw when it was here in Calgary and when you were here in Calgary.
Yes.
So it's a show, I guess, about me and my life, but it's fully captioned, so you know anyone can enjoy it of any hearing ability, and it also like has backing tracks and other things to make it interesting for people who are only hearing it and not seeing it. So it's supposed to be an accessible show about kind of my life, and it's very empowering and happy. And I should really work out a pitch for this, by the way. I should work out a good blurb. So that show is going up at the Adelaide Fringe Festival in March. So I have 2 shows in Adelaide in March, and then I'll likely do like a Calgary edition of it also, just you know personally hosted over Zoom sort of thing. And that show is kind of interesting in the way that like I get to adapt a show that I really love. for the online world. So I get to do some things that I wouldn't otherwise be able to, like the captions can be right underneath my face instead of, behind me on a projector screen. And, I have visuals popping up in the corner, and I get my friend JT is going to sign one of my poems for me. She was the first one who signed Cross-Eyed, and she's going to do that for me for the online version. So yeah, I get to collaborate a lot for this show. Jan and Ephraim Persero are doing the video for that. They are just phenomenal, and I'm so excited to see how they make it even better. So yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to see. You guys will get more behind the scenes and stuff, I think, with this one. You'll see some of the instruments I play for If You Got a Sound and different things like that. So it's a really cool creative process for me. So that's going up in March. You'll find the info on my Facebook page, Miranda K Poet, or on Instagram, or my website, MirandaKrogstad.com. So you can find it any of those places, and I will be showing off my online version of the show soon.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And by the way, for everybody that watches it, it's a really, really interesting show. It's almost an autobiography on one hand, but on the other hand, encourages people to tell their stories. And that's actually a really, really good thing. So that's
it's like, it's about me, but it's about you. I hope.
Well, I guess the last thing we can talk about that, but isn't that what we all do when we tell stories? I mean, totally. Yeah. I mean, whatever. When we get right down to it, we're talking about a piece of ourselves that we all try to relate and connect to, and 100%. That's yeah. So.
We're sharing the human connection, right? The human experience. Like we're just discussing it and sharing it amongst ourselves. Absolutely.
Yeah, and telling a story over and over again, because that's what we do.
Yes.
Anyways, Miranda. Next time I'm in town, whenever that is.
Buddy, coffee. Yeah. You and me. Yeah. Let's do this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally. Next time I'm in town. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Miranda Krogstad. She's an amazing performer, awesome poet, great teacher. If you ever get the chance to do one of her seminars and sessions, you should. Outside of that, if you guys want to support this podcast, thank you for listening or watching, however you chose to do this. Hit the subscribe button on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/JustJoshingPodcast. My YouTube channel is Joshua Pentolaresco. Stay inspired, keep shining in the dark, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with Shali Powell.